Yeah. It was a good game. It was a really fun way to end it with Spencer Barnett hitting a grand slam to go ahead 16-5. I think today the goal is obviously always to win the game, but you want to set your pitching and your position players up to have success long term and going into the weekend. So being able to pitch a lot of different arms is going to be advantageous for us long term. If these guys didn't get on the mound today, we probably would have had to have a simulated game or a scrimmage tomorrow versus our own team just to make sure that they're in a good place going into the weekend. And there were some jobs that were won today and some jobs that were lost today. Starting on Friday, you have to announce a 30-man roster. So right now we're at a 40-man roster. So 10 players won't be able to participate in the series against Oklahoma State. And for this team, I think we've probably played 36 or 37 guys. Really a lot of guys have gotten into the game. So have some tough decisions to make. And a game like this where you're able to separate the score a little bit allowed for us to see some guys in some different spots. Tucker Delisle had his first outing of his career and was excellent. One of the best first outings that I've ever seen. Ben McDougal got his first outing as a Mountaineer in a bases-loaded jam, so set him up for failure, and he killed it. And then a lot of pitchers had success along the way. So it was a fun day. I think maybe as a fan, it could have been a little bit of a slower day just because so many people played and so many pitchers went. But as a coach, you're really rooting for guys to get their opportunities and have success, and we saw a lot of that today.
Coach, the 30-man cut down, is that for Big 12 games only? Or?
That's correct.
Okay, so Marshall, Pitt, you can go back up.
That's right, and the 30-man roster isn't set for it's not set for the season. It's set before each Big 12 series, and so you basically have 30 guys that can enter a contest, and then when you get back on a Tuesday and play, anybody on your team can play. So it truly is a full team effort of 40 guys, but when you're a young player and you're motivated and you're driven, not making a trip really hurts. And so they have a decision to make right now if like they're going to stick with it and keep grinding and work while they wait, or the alternative of that is to cash it in and not take care of business. So when you get the opportunity, you're not prepared for it.
I'm guessing Gavin Kelly has earned a spot in that. I mean, he's been playing.
Absolutely, yep. Gavin Kelly's been fantastic. Really high-end player that we knew in high school was a high-end player. He could have signed a professional contract out of high school if he so chose, but decided to be at West Virginia, and his best days are ahead of him. But he's played left field for us and caught, and obviously he's an electric player, so a fast catcher who can hit, that skill set is extremely unique.
I was going to say how unique. I mean, fast catcher. I mean, those aren't two words that go together very often.
That's right. Probably very few in the country. Gavin probably came to about 10 of our prospect camps over the course of his high school career and was a middle infielder and would play middle infielder, and his bat continued to get better. And I remember getting an email from Gavin after his 5th or 6th camp, and we always kept up with him as a nice player, but we didn't know what direction it was going. And in that video that I watched, I was like, I think this guy can really hit, because you kind of build a database in your head of what guys look like over the course of 1, 2, 3 years. And so the next time that he came to a winter prospect camp, we had him behind the plate, and his arm action really cleaned up from behind the plate. It was a little bit of a longer arm action in the infield, and when he threw from behind the plate, it came out incredibly. And so you saw that today with a couple picks. He probably picked a guy off at third that we didn't quite get the tag down. So very strong arm, really athletic player. So he's basically like a shortstop, middle infielder catching for us. And so it's fun to watch. And then he's always had incredible barrel accuracy, so very good hitter.
I mean, he scored from second today on a ground ball to the shortstop.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. I don't know if I've ever really seen anything like that.
Yep, and don't want to take anything away from him, but he was stealing on the pitch. So we got a little bit of a jump, but he was standing up at the plate. It was an easy safe. And then he did it again when he stole second. A ball kind of squirted to the backstop, and he got to third easily. And so, yeah, both those plays are kind of like, you don't see that very often, and it happened twice in one game.
Now, when you're going through that many pitchers, even if that was kind of the goal going in, was it also in a way a little bit testing your catcher? And did you have any confidence that he could handle working with that many pitchers throughout a game and know what they need, and
Yeah.
it's not easy to do. That's easier said than done.
I didn't think about that too much in the moment because Logan Save was DHing, and he had a little bit of a quad issue in the last game that showed up, and so it was really nice to get him out of the game a little bit earlier. But our only other option was Sam White, so if we took Kelly out at any point, we were going to be on our last catcher, and we wanted to give Sam White a little bit of a breather. He's played every inning of basically every game, and so the only option was you had a young, talented catcher that you want to get innings and you want to catch as much as possible as he develops. So let's just see how he handles it. And I think the telltale sign of a great catcher is that you don't notice him too much. He's not jogging to the backstop very often, and so he did exactly that. He just caught a great game. He was aggressive. He stayed in the game. It's easy to fall asleep sometimes if the score separates a little bit. He threw one ball down the right field line when he was trying to pick a runner off at first, and that kind of fired me up because you have to look for outs. You have to be aggressive. You have to want to win, and so if you're doing that full speed, you're going to make mistakes. If you have a pass ball or a drop ball and you cost 90 feet, that's just as bad, but one's aggressive and one's lazy. So we'll miss on that aggressive side 100% of the time.
Steve, Ben McDougal, we heard a lot of good things about him in Grant's season press conference.
Yeah.
What's held him from pitching?
I think he's just been developing. So when he chose to come here, his stuff wasn't quite in the best spot. And throughout the fall and the spring, he'd had some good outings. He had some bad outings. He had been hit. Then he had a great outing. We had two lefties that we had a little bit more familiarity with, and Joe Fredericks and Fairman. And so early in the season, they got more opportunities. So you kind of keep feeding those guys the ball in the hopes that they'll have success and that they'll do well. Joe Fredericks had 20 appearances last season, so you want to feed the guys that have been good for you as much as possible. And McDougal hadn't had that opportunity to prove that he was ready for this level yet over the course of his career, but he's the most humble dude. He's from the state. He loves the Mountaineers, and he just keeps getting better. So it's like this quiet, humble leader in a certain way. And then he got his opportunity today with bases loaded in his first Division I appearance. Punch out, fly out, and didn't give up a run. So it was like an unbelievable first college outing at the Division I level for him. And he was up to 92 or 93, and so it's a fair question. It's like, well, why the hell is that guy not pitching more? That dude looked pretty good. And so it's a testament to the depth of our staff as well, that you have a lefty up to 92 that threw a bunch of strikes in a big moment that hadn't got in the game yet. And so it's because there's a lot of competition, but obviously what he did today will impact his future innings moving forward.
So it might be a little early to ask, but you played a lot of freshmen today, especially at the mound. What can you say about the future of this team, considering that you took the helm from Coach Randy Mazey? What can you say about the future of this ball club?
Yeah, hopefully those young guys just keep getting innings. I think it's always relative. Everybody shows up here as a pitcher and wants to be the Friday night guy and clip out 100 innings and throw complete games. And if they can focus on just getting better and taking advantage of their opportunities when they get them, they have a chance to eventually evolve into that. But the reason we're throwing those young guys is because we think that they can help us now, and we think that they can help us long term. Yeah, bud.
Why did you say the bulb into that?
Evolve?
Yeah.
Like your Pokemon? Well, they're trying to evolve into dudes. So I think that the moral of the story is just that those young guys we think can help us right now and also in future years. And I'm excited about those guys, but we're not pitching them because they can't help us. So it's not future oriented. They're really high-end, good pitchers that are in that freshman class that continue to get better. And I think their roles will continue to increase as you see. There's been years, even with me and Mays, a guy named Ryan Berger, who's knocking on the door of being in the big leagues. One of his first starts were in the Big 12 tournament, and he went like 5 innings, a shutout baseball versus Texas or Oklahoma. So there's just been some of those stories where it's like they're not quite ready, but when they are and we put them in the game, we look like geniuses because they have success, but we also look like idiots because they hadn't pitched yet, right? And so you're like really monitoring what's going on in practice and scrimmages. If they don't do it in practice or scrimmages, it's hard to then trust them in the big moment in the games. And so we're getting there with some of those young dudes. They're killing it.
Aside from winning, what do you need to see in the matchup against Oklahoma State? How important is that? What are you looking for? Because you're still building for a successful season overall, still kind of early in the season.
Yeah, I think you just want the guys to treat every series the same, and we've preached that from the beginning. Whether you're playing Towson on a Tuesday, Oklahoma State on a Friday night, Marshall on a Wednesday, really working to turn the scoreboard off, ignore the rankings, the preseason, the postseason, the individual accolades. If we play clean baseball, we're a really good team. We're a talented team that has an opportunity to have success on a regular basis. And so wherever we're at, trying to eliminate the opponent as much as we can and just play our brand of baseball.
Any sort of feeling for you individually going back to the Oklahoma State? You know, you enrolled there and coached there. And
Yeah.
probably learned a lot about that. I mean,
Yeah, Josh Holliday's an incredible head coach. I was there originally with Frank Anderson at Oklahoma State, and then that staff moved on, and Coach Holliday kept me on. So I was like the holdover from the previous staff. So he believed in me enough, or I fooled him enough for him to keep me on staff for a little while. And I was a graduate manager. I was painting dugouts and taking out trash and doing pitching charts and running video work and anything I possibly could just to be around the game. So extremely thankful for Coach Holliday. Coach Rob Walton was there, who's an excellent pitching coach, learned a ton. I think probably those emotions are less after a decade. But I remember the first time going back to Stillwater and the first time they rolled in to King Kendrick Family Ballpark, and you get excited. You want to compete at your highest level. I remember we had an extremely slow runner in a 0-0 game on a Friday night at home at first base for us, and we hit a double down the left field line, and I sent him home, and he got thrown out by 30 feet at the plate. And I was like, was that because I was so juiced up to try to beat Oklahoma State on a Friday night late in the game? And so some of those emotions are things like those are real human emotions that come out that you just try to make sure that you manage and don't make poor decisions.
So back to the staff, not to be a total Debbie Downer, you guys, there were a lot of free bases. More so I'm looking at the hit batters. I
Yeah.
appreciate it as aggressiveness, like you want to attack them inside. Is that your team philosophy game to game, or is that looking at Towson's lineup, thinking, oh, they might not be able to turn on some of these fastballs, they just got away from your guys?
Yeah, I don't know what the specific pitch calls were when we hit the batters. Coach Oni calls the pitches, but we absolutely will pitch inside. We've done that since the beginning of the fall. We want to command the inner part of the plate. That allows for off-speed pitches to play a lot better out over the plate. Kind of classic baseball strategy, and every hitter is different, but his hard in, soft away is extremely common. My guess is that a lot of those pitches that we hit opponents with today weren't necessarily inside fastballs. They were just sprayed and missed. And so that's not good. It's more common on a Tuesday game if you have 20 pitchers and you're feeding the ball to maybe the pitchers that hadn't had the most success or pitchers on the depth chart that were 14 to 20. You want everybody to agree great. You want every pitcher to have command, but when you have 20 healthy arms, the guys that aren't pitching as much, a lot of times they're more rusty, or they're younger, or they're struggling, or they're working on mechanics. You want to put them out there so they gain experience, but the cost of that is some bumps and bruises on the other team normally.
Coach, one more about Oklahoma State. Obviously, there's 12 Big 12 series, or 13?
There is, we play 10,
10, okay.
and there's 14 total teams. Yep.
So, I mean, this is the first series of the year, Big 12, but obviously Oklahoma State picked first. They are who they are. So do you think this is a big series for you guys tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sick. I think every series is good. Like I had butterflies before today's game because the reality is if you lose against a quote-unquote lesser opponent, it can affect your postseason resume more than losing versus a good opponent. So oftentimes when you play somebody that you're supposed to beat, I get more anxious. Like I'm a mess sometimes before the game if you're playing a Towson who's maybe like not quite as highly regarded as Oklahoma State. When you play maybe a higher ranked team or a more quality team. Like, you've trained, you've worked, you prepared, you go let the chips fall, you go do your thing. But sometimes I worry about mentality going to a game like today, where guys maybe don't have the right edge going into the game because they think it's going to be easy. And in baseball, you get one good starting pitcher on the other team, you make some mistakes, you hit some batters, and it can get away from you in a hurry. So it is a big series, but literally they're all big series. You want to win the Big 12, you want to go compete in your league. All those things are important. So I don't personally. There's no difference for me.
Do you think the team, I mean, obviously, 15-1 is a great start. Is there a swagger built up over that course that
Yeah.
will lead you into, the Big 12?
I think there's a swagger. I think there's confidence. I think there's a lot of guys that know whoever we play has a chance to have success. Spencer Barnett's perfect example. Didn't start the game, hit 2 home runs. Kyle West didn't start the game, 2 hits and a walk. You had some guys that had success that weren't starters in this game. So you want 30 guys rolling into your game saying any 30 player here has a chance to be a big impact. I think if you get to that point, you could be really, really good. Part of that swagger comes from toughness. Brody Kresser breaking his nose, coming back, helping us win a series. Logan Save getting 3 hits after kind of a quad pull. A pitcher going back-to-back days. I think our whole thing is built on toughness to some extent. We train in the early spring in sleet and snow and ice, and oftentimes it's a frozen hell for a baseball player who's trying to throw 95, trying to hit 95 in the ice. And so I think a little bit of that mentality is like, wherever we show up, we're going to try to play with more grit than anybody. And that's a West Virginia thing. I mean, I think every sport and every coach forever has talked about the grit of the state and what this thing's about. But it's just a reality in our sport. Like, there's definitely guys that are training in shorts on side fields with manicured grass when we have snowbanks around the outfield and it's 24 degrees with wind chill at 16. And so I think it makes for a little different mentality of our kids.
Not much snow and sleet and still water? Or?
I don't think so, but I heard there was like potential of 30, 40 mile an hour winds, which they'll get a lot there. And they usually have some big old left-handed hitters that can pop some balls up in the air and run it out of O'Brate Stadium. And so we'll see how that goes.
If somebody says to you that this team, because there's been a conversation, this team could even be better than last year's team. Players have said it, fans, media have said it. Why would you think that is? Like, what makes you believe this team is better than last year's team, or is that still a work in progress that you're not ready to, say you believe in that just yet?
Yeah, work in progress. I don't want to anoint anything ever. Last year's team was the greatest team in program history that actually accomplished something. Winning a regional defined that as the greatest team in program history. So going 15-1 and having a good batting average and 18 pitchers that contribute with a sub-3 ERA, that's not winning. That doesn't mean anything. Those are individuals that are accomplishing things that are fun. But no season has ever been won before the conference started. So none of that matters. That's all kind of poison, eyewash kind of stuff. So what we actually do and how you perform will dictate if this team is better or not. So we won't know that until the end of the year. Are we as
Are there
talented?
things that maybe in your brain you think, okay, we do this well, we do this well.
Yeah.
If you get there, are there attributes that you're seeing already?
Yes, we have
More of those.
veteran, intense, highly motivated position players across the board and up the middle of the field. Catcher, shortstop, second base, and center field are returners that understand what it takes to win and played in a super regional. So if you have that, it's a really good starting point. You have a bunch of guys around them that are highly motivated, competitive. With the depth of this team, in the fall, every single person knew that performance matters. Performance mattered in the fall, performance matters in the spring. If you don't bring it every day with energy and perform, you're not going to get in the lineup on this team. So the depth is really what has created an atmosphere that requires hunger, aggressiveness, eagerness to show up to the yard and get good. The pitching staff is probably the most talented when it comes to stuff, fastball velocities, attributes of pitches, spins, but it was highly inexperienced. We lost 75% of our innings from last year. So That inexperience, though, has allowed for guys to get opportunities, and they've performed well up to this point. So when it comes to stuff, our pitchers are better than last year. When it comes to performance, that is to be determined. But last year we had some starters that regularly threw complete games and long outings. And so by the end of the year, there's probably only like 5, 6 guys that were getting the ball in general. Right now we probably have, 14, 16, 17 guys getting the ball. So that would be an indicator that you have a chance of a lot of depth. Tucker Delisle today, a true freshman that got his opportunity, was up to 94, threw a clean 1 inning of work with a strikeout and no walks, and he hadn't pitched for us. So, that's pretty rare. Like, a freshman throwing 94 with no walks and dominated, that shows you the depth a little bit. So I think, for me, that's probably the most exciting piece.
You were saying earlier that other teams like Oklahoma State have, are practicing in shorts and manicured grass. Well,
I didn't say Oklahoma State I didn't say Oklahoma State was that person. I said there are people in the country. I was thinking more like West Coast, like further out there.
Well, that's a mistake on my end. But does the state on your chest sort of give the guys a little chip on their shoulder? Does that give them something to prove to the rest of the country?
Absolutely. I think this whole university has that mentality and that culture. I think our guys want to play for the state, play for the community, play for this university. If you play at WVU, you are the centerpiece. You're the New York Yankees of this state. And so I think just automatically people want to represent those things when they put on the uniform.
Coach, one more on Gavin. Listed at 6 foot, 170. That doesn't scream catcher to me. You mentioned he played left field. Do you see, he sounds like from talking to him, he loves playing catcher, but do you see a future for him as a catcher? And the way he can run, does he kind of maybe break the mold of what people think of catchers, I guess?
Yes. We plan on him being our long-term catcher in this program, and I think it does break the mold, and there'll be some sort of balance. If you want to keep his legs long-term, he probably catching every day is not the best option, because by the middle of the season, you probably lose that tool. And so in an ideal world, you're able to recruit 2 catchers that can catch like we have right now,
Right.
which is rare. I don't think we've ever really had that in this program where we felt comfortable enough to roll a different catcher back there on a regular basis. And that's what we've done with Kelly. And so it's a hard position to play. A lot of times certain attributes or characteristics fall into becoming a catcher. So the guy that can really run is playing center field and shortstop. And so I think for him, he's in such a good position to be a major impact as a catcher. And on the pro side, hit, check, throw, receive, block, leadership. Oh, yeah, and there's a catcher that can run. Like, you got a chance to really elevate your draft stock long term. And so it's a cool combination.
From talking to him, it sounds like his recruiting story is very similar to JJ's story.
Yeah.
Getting on him early, that, kind of thing before everyone else really got on him.
Yeah, I think that is correct. And a local guy from the same part of the country that wanted to be here, that dove in. But I think you're on to something when you're watching that guy play, going, this looks different.
Right.
This might be a special one long term. There's no doubt about that.
That should be a scout.
No, I think you're on to something.
I'm a scout.
Good. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Tucker, nice